Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. If we can get started, I would like to call to order the October 4th Citizen Advisory Committee meeting. Staff, please call the roll so that we establish a quorum.
Brian Rossi. Oh, and I'm sorry. At this time, I am only asking those CAC members attending in person to respond by saying here when I call your name. I want to remind you to unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. And please do note that our microphones have been acting a little funky, so you might have to click the button more than once. Sorry, Brian Rossi.
Here.
Michael Fitzpatrick. James Garvin.
Here.
Mark Bruner.
Here.
Ramona Bean. Paula Ryan. Jim Knight is absent. James Bonfiglio.
Here.
Richard Vazzalotti.
Here.
Perfect. Marissa Das.
Present.
Thank you. Sammy Brown. Mark Forrest. BJ Mishra.
Here.
Francisco Paco Gil.
Here.
Myron Uman is absent. Carrie Brown. Greg Fagan.
Here.
The municipalities of Belglade, Green Acres, Jupiter, and Lake Worth Beach are all vacant and will be marked absent for this meeting. Albert Richwagen. Wending.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Are there any modifications to the agenda at this time?
Yes, Madam Chair. The following members are requesting CAC permission to participate remotely. Terry Brown is requesting permission due to a disability that makes in-person attendance difficult. He has not joined the meeting at this time. Paula Ryan due to travel, and she has joined the meeting at this time.
Okay. Are there any objections to allowing Paula Ryan to attend the meeting at this time to participate remotely? Okay. Seeing none, this member is approved to participate remotely. Can you make note, Amanda?
Yes,
For the
ma'am.
meeting minutes. Okay, we're moving on to item 1C. Motion to approve the minutes of July 6th, 2022 and September 7th of 2022. Are there any changes to the minutes at this time? Okay, if not, I'd like to have a motion to adopt the minutes as presented.
Motion to adopt.
Okay, motion by James, a second, please. Second by Albert. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those nay. Opposed, please say nay. Okay. All right, moving on to item 1D, general public comments. Instruction on how to provide public comments are included in the agenda. At this time, are there any comments received?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, perfect. Are there any comments from the chair and committee members? So if at this time, I want to invite CAC member comments on items not already on the agenda. For members participating remotely, please utilize the raise hand feature in the Zoom platform, and then remember to unmute your microphone once you are recognized. Are there any member comments? Oh, I see Richard. Hi, Richard.
I'm asking if we could, before these meetings, do a pledge of allegiance. I know the governing board does. I think all the committees should also do it, but I would like to see us do a pledge of allegiance when these meetings start, if we could do that.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. Of course, I think we can include it in the next meeting as a part of the agenda.
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right. Any other member comments? Do we have any comments virtually?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, perfect. So we're moving on to the CAC Liaison Report. So I'd like to invite Jason to update.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. First update, we have a new member that's joining the TPA staff. His name is Tyler Radenbaugh. He's our transportation planner on the program development side. So please welcome Tyler as a new staff member. He's here in the audience. Next is our walk and roll to school day. That's October 12th. And in Palm Beach County, we account for about 25% of all registered schools in the state. And you can find out more information at walkbiketoschool.org. It's also National Pedestrian Safety Month in October. So that's 2 ways to raise awareness for pedestrian safety. You can find more information at the website listed here at nhtsa.gov. There's a few more for October for bike and pedestrian. And first is Mobility Week for 2022. That's being hosted by Fdot, and that's statewide. And that runs between October 21st through October 28th. And there's more information at the Fdot website for Mobility Week. Also in October, Fdot is also hosting the Love to Ride Challenge. And here at the TPA, we've been actively participating in this, and it's a great opportunity to kind of bring your staff together or citizens together and participate in a Love to Ride Challenge. There's events throughout the month, and you can really win some great prizes, including bikes, gift cards, and such. Next is our Vision Zero for Youth U.S. Leadership Award. There's a deadline for apply at October 21st, but it's a great event to look into, and you can find more information at visionzeroforyouth.org/awards USA. US. Next, I'll be covering this as an informational item, the TPA grant application workshop, which will be held on November 3rd here in our offices. So I'll be doing a presentation this afternoon to go over all of the 3 grant programs that we administer here and provide additional information. And you'll find more information on our website as well at palmbeachtpa.org/funding. And next is our Railvolution event, and that's being held down in Miami at the Intercontinental Miami Hotel, and that's from October 30th to November 2nd. It's a very well attended event. It's very informative. There's a lot of great things to learn at these events, and there's a free regional event on November 2nd from 2 to 5:30 to go down and participate in this and that particular event. And you can find more information at the Railvolution website, but we also provide a link on our website at palmbeachtpa.org/conferences. There's also the Urban Land Institute Summit this is a public workshop also held in Miami, and that's running from December 5th through the 7th. And there's a free event specifically for elected officials and the public sector workshop on density on December 5th. And again, more information you can be found at florida.uli for urbanlandinstitute.org. And lastly, our TPA governing board meeting will be held later on this month on October 20th at 9 a.m. here in this office. You can participate either live during the event or tune into our live webcast on our website at palmbeachtpa.org/live. There's World Day of Remembrance for road traffic victims. That particular day has been scheduled for or recognized on November 21st, and more information for that can be found at visionzeronetwork.org. And lastly, the 2023 Safe Street Summit. This is an annual event that's kind of rotating between the 3 MPOs between Broward, Miami, and Palm Beach. And this year it's going to be hosted by the Broward MPO, and that's going to be held at the Diplomat Beach Resort in Hollywood, Florida. And it will be held on February 2nd to February 3rd in 2023. And we encourage all of you, if you're interested, to participate and reach out to us, and we can get you tickets to go and enjoy the event. And to find out more about it, you can go to safestreetsummit.org. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any action items on this agenda at this time? Okay.
No,
Seeing-
Madam Chair.
Seeing none, we're going to go straight to information items. First one is updates to the TPA funding programs. So I'd like to invite Jason to present on this item.
So as I mentioned, I'm going to go over a brief overview of the 3 grant programs that we administer here at the TPA. And those include the Local Initiatives, Transportation Alternatives, and State Road Modifications Grant Program. So the first one is the one that I administer, the Local Initiatives Grant Program. And this encourages municipalities to apply for projects that include complete streets, transit capital like rolling stock for SFRTA and Tri-Rail, or electric buses for Palm Tran, as well as non-motorized infrastructure for bike and pedestrian facilities, as well as freight infrastructure. The total amount this year is approximately 26 million, and with a maximum of 5 million per project. And that's an increase from the 20 million that we typically see annually. And the illustration here on the bottom will show, indicates that there's an application deadline of February 17th, with design being completed in 2026. And the funding for this program provides construction funding that will become available in 2028 on July 1st, or fiscal year 2029. Now, with that increase in funding from 20 million to 26 million, some of that funding is coming directly from the carbon reduction strategy funding that is part of our federal transportation authorization bill, which is the bipartisan infrastructure law bill. So as part of that, the carbon reduction strategy programs offering or providing 320 million to Florida over the next 5 years. And the TPA is receiving almost 3 million per year, and we're including that 3 million or 2.9 million in the Local Initiatives Grant Program. The types of projects, the purpose of the program is ultimately to encourage ways to reduce transportation emissions from on-road highway sources. And FHWA has provided a few kind of overview strategies or general strategies, which include reducing single occupancy vehicles, as well as encouraging the use of vehicles or modes of travel that result in lower emissions, as well as finding approaches to construction that also result in lower emissions, they're kind of general outlined strategies, but I think as the program takes shape, we'll get more specifics on what kind of strategies that could really be employed. So, well, before I go to the next program, in addition to the carbon reduction strategy with the additional funding, there's also additional funding being awarded or provided by FDOT that's formula funds provided to the TPA to incorporate into our Local Initiatives Grant Program. So the funding that I'm discussing is available in 2028, but we're getting a few $1,000,000 per year starting in 2023 that's currently available up through 2028. So there's several $1,000,000 over the course of the next 5 years that we have the opportunity to work with FDOT collaboratively and provide that funding on priority projects that are experiencing additional costs or cost overruns through either design or construction. So we're actively working with FDOT now to identify projects that are increasing in cost, that this additional funds can kind of defray that cost and keep those projects moving forward, or advancing projects that are already in the pipeline that may have the opportunity to be accelerated and be constructed early after we identify projects that are experiencing some difficulties with increased funding for those particular projects. And we're seeing that across the board with a lot of projects where when you're going out to bid to construct the project, the costs are coming in kind of way over budget. And so some of the municipalities are struggling to meet that shortfall. And so this particular funding is going to be one way to kind of buffer that cost. Not just transitioning to their transportation alternatives program. This is the smaller of the three programs, but this is also has additional funding. What we usually see on an annual basis is about 3 million available per year. This year, we have available about 5.1 million. And so what we've done is increase proportionally the maximum per project. So when it's usually 3 million available, like last year, the maximum per project is about 1 million. So since we're receiving 5 million, we've increased the maximum to about 1.5 million. And I feel like it's very suitable now that we're seeing an increase in cost and construction funding and implementing these projects. This will allow for those projects to kind of manage those increased costs. And the types of projects that you see here are really driven towards bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure projects that provide connectivity and accessibility through bike and pedestrian facilities, as well as safe routes to school. And the timeline here, it's a 3-year timeline as opposed to a 5-year timeline that you see for local initiatives and state road modifications. So you would apply in 2023 for February 17th. Your design would be done in the following year. And then by year 3, you'll receive the construction funding through this particular grant in 2026 or fiscal year 27. And lastly is our state road modifications program, which is modeled after our local initiatives and transportation alternatives program. And they all follow the same schedule that I'll cover in the next slide. So all of the programs follow the same schedule, with the difference for this program as compared to transportation alternatives and local initiatives. This program is specifically designed to implement projects on the state roadway system that may go through a municipality. And so it requires close coordination and collaboration with FDOT early on in the process to identify the nature of the changes that are being applied for. And typically what we're looking for is complete streets projects, traffic calming projects, or intersection improvements along the state highway. And this has about 20.4 million available annually for this grant cycle. And the maximum per project is about $5 million. So just to go over some of the dates that I mentioned for all of the programs, the initial kickoff for all of the programs is the formal adoption of the program overviews and scoring by our TPA governing board, which that meeting will be held on October 20th, 2022. And after that formal adoption of the programs, we'll then take the opportunity to hold an application workshop here in our offices, right in this room here. And that'll be on Thursday, November 3rd. We'll record it live. We invite all applicants or potential applicants to come and get the information firsthand, but we'll record it and then we'll post it on our website for future reference. So if you want to go back and get some of the information that's covered in the workshop, it will be captured live and hosted on our website. And with that, begins the formal rollout or introduction of the program. And one of the first steps for applicants is to schedule a pre-application meeting. And the pre-application meeting runs between November 7th and January 31st. And within that window, that's the opportunity for applicants to schedule a meeting, come to our office, present the potential projects that they'd like to apply for, and then ask questions of FDOT and TPA to have the discussion about best approaches and best program to apply for those projects. So we make it required because it's a good opportunity to really get a sense of what projects will be applied for. And then the Q&A between the applicant and FDOT and TPA that's very beneficial early on in the process to help guide the applicant to the best program to apply for. Again, the application deadline is February 17th, 2023. And after that application deadline, that's when we'll begin to review all of the applications, score each of the potential projects, and then begin the FDOT vetting process. And that vetting process will conclude with an eligibility determination by FDOT for constructability of those projects and make them eligible for funding. We'll then take those projects, incorporate them into our list of priority projects, which we'll bring back to this group and all of our committees and board in July 2023. They'll be formally adopted and included in our list of priority projects, which we then send to FDOT, and then they make their way into the work program for FDOT, and we begin to see funding for those projects in the Transportation Improvement Program in future years. And just as a conclusion and as an overview, this is an illustration of all three programs: state road modifications, local initiatives, and transportation alternatives, the three programs that we administer here, with some of the details in terms of the amount of funding available for this particular cycle, the types of projects that are eligible for each program, and a reminder that the grant application workshop will be held on November 3rd from 2 to 4:30 p.m. here in our offices, and that the application deadline is February 17th, 2023 at 5 p.m. And you can get more information about all of these programs on our website, palmbeachtpa.org/funding. And as a final note, we are rolling out a new website, which will have a new look, new feel, and be easier to navigate and user-friendly. And so we'll be promoting these programs actively on our website. And so hopefully when you visit our website, you'll see a new look and a new feel, and just enjoy the use of our website. And with that, I'd like to thank you, and I can take any questions at this time.
Okay. Are there any public comments on this item at this time?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay. Does any committee member have any comments? Virtually? Oh, I'm sorry. Am I not seeing a card? Oh. On
Thank you.
Zoom.
No, a quick question. So the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed, the one you brought up, it talks about carbon reduction strategies. So that means it doesn't have to be a transportation project. It could be any kind of project, or it has to be a transportation project. Like a local government, can they go with something else that is not necessarily transportation, but it is a carbon reduction strategy?
So that's definitely a good question. To think through that particular question, I would think that perhaps you could come up with an alternative strategy. However, the nature of the funding is being provided through FDOT. So the way we receive the funding is through formula funds, and it comes to us by way of FDOT. So I would think that it could be transportation driven, but I would have to do a little more research to see, well, what kind of carbon reduction projects would necessarily be eligible. You might have more information.
Thank you, Andrew Euler. That's a good question. Oh, I actually have the language pulled up for that question. The states are required to make a carbon reduction strategy and release that to state level within 2 years of this bill. So they have about a year and a half now to get that rolled out, and we'll see what's in there. But some of the eligible things that it can go towards, obviously we're getting a formula funds directly to our urbanized area here, but one of the examples I have is for where was I? 1 second. It was for pooled vehicles, shared trips. So has programs for shared or pooled vehicle trips within the state or an area served by the relevant MPO. So it can go towards different programs, not just infrastructure. The way we have the money right now is in the local niches program. So a lot of our scoring is geared towards infrastructure. So if we had applicants that came in and they wanted to do that sort of thing, we would try to work with them on that. And it could be an eligible expense, but our scoring is mostly geared towards infrastructure projects.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Are there any other member comments at this time? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much. We're moving on to item 2B. The South Florida Regional Transportation Authority update. Greg, oh, it's not you, Greg, that's presenting. It's on the agenda for you.
He'll be doing the presentation right after this.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lorraine Cargill, and I am with the South Florida Regional Transportation Authority. We are the operator of Tri-Rail. So I am here to provide a brief update on our Northern Layover Facility project. Before I jump into that, I want to take a few minutes just to plug Tri-Rail. How do I use this thing? Okay, there we go. So how many of you have used Tri-Rail either recently or in the past? Okay, fabulous. Good. So hopefully you all had a good experience. If you didn't, give it a second try. So our Tri-Rail system runs from our Mangonia Park Station in the north down to our Miami Airport Station down at the Miami International Airport. Okay, so if you have not, if you are, let's say, traveling out of the Miami International Airport, the best and most convenient way to get to the airport is via Tri-Rail. Okay, our system goes right into the airport. You go upstairs, you get on the people mover, and it takes you right to your terminal. It's the best way to fly out of MIA. So with that, what we've seen is our Miami Airport Station is now our #1 airport station in terms of ridership. Over the last 3 years, with the pandemic and with the recovery that's been going on, it's now our #1 station in terms of ridership. So that's been great for us. We also connect to the airports in Fort Lauderdale and West Palm Beach. However, you do have to either get on a shuttle bus or use our Metro taxi or Uber in the case of West Palm Beach. Okay. So we have 18 stations along our corridor. Prior to the pandemic, our ridership was about 14,000 to 15,000 riders on an average weekday. We're about 80 to 85% recovered on a weekday. And on the weekend, we're about 90 to 95% recovered. And so, in fact, we have been the second commuter rail system in the country with the highest recovery. So that's been good. So with that, I'll jump into our Northern Layover Facility project. And I'll just start with talking about the need for the project. Certainly most of you know where our facility, our existing facility currently is. It's just south of our West Palm Beach station. It's about an acre small. And really too small to fit, what we're planning for in terms of expansion of our system. It accommodates right now about 4 to 5 4-car train sets, and it's really not sufficient for expansion needs. In addition, it is south of our end-of-line station. So our end-of-line station is our Mangonia Park Station. So at the end of the night, our trains have to come back down to West Palm Beach, doing non-revenue trips to have their maintenance and fueling, done. So it's really not an ideal location. In addition, it's right in the downtown, surrounded by condos. And so certainly there is a need to move that facility out of the downtown. And that is our plan. We plan to phase this facility out of the downtown to our new facility. Our new facility, the location of it will be just north of our Mangonia Park Station. So a much more efficient end-of-line location, which will minimize non-revenue movements. It will also accommodate anywhere from about 8 to 10 4-car train sets. So a much larger facility. As I mentioned, the current facility is about 1 acre. This new facility will be about 10 acres. So a much bigger, larger facility. And so here's just a picture of our existing facility. In the yellow, you see, I don't know how to point with this thing. So you see our facility in yellow there, and then the planned facility will be just north of our Mangonia Park Station. This is another picture right here, the top, the top picture in yellow is the current facility. And you can see the bigger facility on the bottom. Again, accommodating up to 10 train sets. And so some of the elements of the new facility, we will have layover tracks with wayside power capabilities, which allows the trains to be maintained while, you know, just being plugged into wayside power, which reduces a lot of the noise that you get from having that type of facility. We'll have larger crew building, train wash, service and inspection area, and there'll be a noise wall around most of the facility. So a much bigger, nicer facility we expect with lower noise. And there is not a lot of residential in that area. There's some starting to come in. But again, that noise wall will be very helpful. So this is just another picture of the layout of the facility. You can see the facility does impact 3 municipalities: Town of Mangonia Park, City of West Palm Beach, and the City of Riviera Beach. Now, we spent about 2 years working with each of these municipalities to put together an interlocal agreement among them. That took us from like about 2018 to 2020. We finally did get that agreement executed. And so each of the municipalities will have different role into the project. As an example, the City of West Palm Beach will provide police and fire services to the facility. They will also help with permitting and inspections. The Town of Mangonia Park, they will provide water and sewer facilities water and sewer to the facility, as well as we will be improving Dexter Way, which is an entrance into the facility for the Town of Mangonia Park. City of Riviera Beach, we will be relocating a canal on the site for them and also constructing a dry retention pond. So again, a lot of coordination will be done with the municipalities for this project. Okay, talk about the project timeline. This project has been going on for a while. So in 2013, we had the environmental clearance on this project. In 2015, we acquired a lot of the funding thanks to the Palm Beach TPA as well as to FDOT. In 2016, we acquired a parcel that is needed for the facility. And between 2016 and 2018, we began pulling together a preliminary design as well as design criteria in order to move forward with a design build procurement. Okay, so what we did was we took our designs to about 20%, and then we put that out, we advertised that project to get a design build contractor on who would then finish the design and construct the project. However, what we found was the proposals that came back, all the proposals that came back came in too high. The costs were too high, above what we had allocated for the funding. And so what we heard from proposers was that really there's a lot of risk with this project because we only have 20% design. And so since that time, we've gone back and we've decided to do a different procurement method, which is now a design bid build procurement method, where we take the design to 100% and then we bid it out. So that's the trajectory we're on right now. We just executed a contract with the designer just last month. So we advertised it, got proposals in, evaluated, and we've selected a designer. That contract is now executed. They will be moving forward with the designs. That effort is about 18 months. And then we will bid that out for a contractor to construct the project. The construction timeframe is going to be about 3 years. Okay. So that then takes me to my final slide, which is our financial information. Total project cost is about 45.5 million. As I mentioned, we completed a NEPA, that was about 1.5 million. Our design services right now has actually come in under that 4 million you see there, so that's good news. So we'll move forward with that, and then construction is estimated at about 36 million. And we'll be having a construction engineering inspection firm that will oversee that contractor, and that's effort is estimated at around 4 million. So that pretty much concludes my presentation. I do want to, again, just thank the Palm Beach TPA for all the funding that they have put into this project. You can see they certainly contributed to about 90% of the cost of this project. And our goal is to really get this project done as quickly as possible and be able to phase out of the downtown facility. So with that, let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation.
Sure.
Are there any public comments on this item at this time?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Does any committee members have any questions? Oh, we have one.
Yeah, I was just curious, who did you choose as your design consultant?
So we have Colliers Engineering Services, I believe, and they have a number of sub-consultants as part of that team.
Okay. Thank you. VJ?
I just wanted to second the thing that you said about traveling. Best way to travel to Miami International Airport is Tri-Rail. I did it once, and for last 10 years, if I'm traveling out of Miami International Airport, Tri-Rail is the best option.
Fabulous. Love that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much. James?
Thank you for the presentation. Real quickly, can you explain to us a little bit more about how this might impact the coastal rail link we keep hearing about as far as like long-term planning goes for Tri-Rail
Sure.
and servicing the northern areas of the county?
Yeah, so, certainly having a much larger facility will allow for expansion efforts such as going up to Jupiter, such as going to the VA hospital. Those are two efforts that are part of our long-range plans. Related to Coastal Link and moving up to Jupiter, that's something we're coordinating with the Palm Beach TPA on. Certainly we need the county and the TPA to take the lead on that effort, but we're here to support. Right now, we are working with Miami-Dade County as well as Broward County on Coastal Link. They are advancing that project. We believe Northeast Corridor is the portion in Miami, may be advanced first, but certainly Broward County's portion of the project will then move forward quickly. So we are now part of that conversation going on with them, and hopefully Palm Beach will be the next, county to join into that effort. SFRTA, Tri-Rail is still hoping to be the operator of that service. And so that's the role that we hope to play in that effort.
Right. Thank you so much. I am interested, Jason, in this question is, who is taking the lead on this particular project in Palm Beach County, right? The northern section.
I think
That's your next
that
presentation.
might be a good segue for the next presentation by Greg. He's going to kind of go over the extension portion of it.
Perfect. Thank you.
I did want to plug that Tri-Rail has been successful in receiving funds for new rolling stock. And so by looking at the timeline, there's about a 5-year lag, waiting period for local initiatives funding. So they have brand new trains coming when this station will be open. So, not only will there be a new facility to park these new trains, but it'll just add to the service. So I just want to plug the success of SFRTA getting brand new trains in the near future to kind of go well with this new layover station as well.
Well, thank you. And thanks to Palm Beach TPA for supporting us on that.
Congratulations on your procurement and moving forward. All right, so we're moving on to the next item, which is the FDOT update. right?
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair. This actually is a two-part presentation for
there's two parts.
3B.
Part two.
Yes.
then.
Good afternoon.
I'm reading off the scripts, so thank you, Greg.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you, Madam Chair. Member of the committee, this is a portion of the Tri-Rail Coastal Link update. Will be a short presentation, not really much of too much updates because there is not a lot of activities, but this was requested by the membership to follow up with you guys. Quick background, I just want to clarify, if you're looking at the map on to the right, the green line is what we're calling Tri-Rail Coastal Link. And this is about 85 miles long from Jupiter to Palm Beach County and from Jupiter to Miami. And Tri-Rail been in service since 1989. And on 1998, the extension from Mangonia to Miami, where Tri-Rail started servicing the region. One of the big effort that happened was in 2006 when they did double tracking, which allowed more train on the corridor, especially if you have a incident happen, train can cross over to actually keep the system running. So the double tracking really helps the corridor and mobility of the trains. So following to the Tri-Rail Coastal Link, studies have been happening. FDOT led a study in 2005 where they studied the entire region and actually having meetings with the Tri-County area on how to really bring this coastal link to life. So one of the key points I want to mention, which I'll talk about further, is the white lines you see on the north side of on the track, which connects CSX with FEC. That's really one of the key part of the project as well. Continue on 2009, TPA really made it a priority to extend to Jupiter. So this extension, we basically added to our priority project list, and that really securing the project that we are committed to continue on doing this project. Further analysis that FDOT completed is the station opportunities. At the new station, you will have closely to about 300,000 new residents and about 1 million jobs in that corridor. So extensive research have been done by FDOT to actually see the market needs for this project. And the station refinement report is basically, there was about 25 stations in the original plan. I believe they added more station, which part of them is, I think for Palm Beach County piece, there were 3 stations originally, 45th Street, Lake Park, and Jupiter, but there's 5 new stations now, plus the VA extension that's been added. So ongoing and needs. This project has been delaying, but key improvements have been happening, like I mentioned before. The Northwood crossover has been complete, which is a major part of the project that's allowing the trains from CSX to FEC. That's a big accomplishment. Lorraine just covered the Northern Layover, which is under procurement. So steps are happening to actually bring this Tri-Rail Coastal links to life. Unfortunately, PD&E is still being delayed on hold. And one of the major reasons PD&E is on hold is it's hard to move forward with the projects when you don't have the capital to support the project. The TPA is committed to do capital improvement, but we're not allowed to do maintenance and operation. So we cannot pay for this. So we need a local funds, dedicated funding source to pay for operation to allow hopefully Tri-Rail to operate the CSX, Tri-Rail to operate I lost my word here. to allow Tri-Rail to be the operator for the system. So until we have this dedicated funding source, it's hard to do the negotiation with the FEC for the access, because there's an access fee. The FEC rail system is privately owned. So I guess to summarize it, until we have this funding source, the project will be delayed. So we will not be able to move forward with PD&E, and so that will be the hold for now until we actually have this funding source. And that'll be our presentation.
All right, thank you. I guess, are there any public comments? I jumped the gun earlier, but are there any public comments? on
Not at this
item?
time, Madam Chair.
Any member comments? I have some questions.
Yes.
I guess my question would be, if I, actually, please clarify if I understand this properly. Where PD&E is not moving forward until we identify operational funding source from each local municipalities. Am I hearing
Yes,
that right?
that is correct. Yes, because the project is in the Tri-County area. I believe Miami is making more progress in identifying their funding source, and Broward already had their sale tax approved in the ballots. And we actually still undecided on how to move forward, but we are doing the work here to identify funding source in Palm Beach. So until we have those funding, then PD&E will continue to be delaying.
Right. And yeah, maybe Brian.
Brian would like to add some to
Sure.
it.
I know, just Brian Risher, Deputy Director of Multimodal at the TPA, just to add to what Greg said, it doesn't necessarily have to be municipal funding sources. It could be county-wide funding sources, which are passed by either referendum, bond, sales tax, that are non-municipal dollars for operations and maintenance as a match to go towards capital funding for the rail infrastructure itself or the rail cars. So just to add to that. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Okay. So there's two pieces. There's the infrastructure and there's the operations. And knowing how local government works, there's probably not going to be coming from our actual city operation budget in each one of our respective cities, which means we're more reliant on the sales tax referendum if it makes it to the ballot in the next election cycle. And I think we all understand where this is moving towards, right? If this project has been delayed for the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Because there's no operational dollars unless we go out for a sales tax referendum. Do we know what that ticket dollar is or how much that is to operate?
So there were some numbers, but that's from the previous study FDOT has done. I can follow up with you with exact number. I don't want to.
Is it in the
It's a couple of millions.
a couple?
I can follow up with you.
A couple per agencies. I'm assuming that,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Brian Risher again, we have a work order right now actively with a consultant, Kinley Horn, to investigate the capital cost and the operation and maintenance costs for all of the stations. We're working with SFRTA on that as well. That project isn't completed yet, and we're not ready to share, a finalized number, but what Greg said, millions, could be a couple millions. That number will be shared
$1
whenever
million.
the ready is complete. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. I don't have any other questions. Oh, we do have a question online. Paula Ryan, please. Paula, can you unmute yourself? No, okay, not available.
Paula, it seems like you are unmuted, but perhaps you're not fully connected to audio. It looks like you reconnected to audio, so you might be able to try it now. Paula, it doesn't seem like we're able to hear you. If you wanted to send an email to info@palmbeachtpa.org, I can read out the question that you had from there.
Okay, Paula, if you don't mind submitting your questions to info@palmbeachtpa.org. Okay. And then we'll continue and we'll address that question by the next meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So the last information item is FDOT updates. And I believe it's going to be a virtual presentation. So
Yes,
I'd like
ma'am.
to,
Yes,
I'd like to invite FDOT to present on this item, please.
great. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
If you don't mind speaking up just a tad bit, it'll help us.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for allowing me to present virtually. My trip to South Florida got canceled due to Hurricane Ian, so I appreciate the opportunity for me to present to you online. And then we've also got a couple folks. I'm up in the DOT central office, and then there's also some folks on the line from District 4 who can help answer any questions that you have. So I appreciate you allowing me to be here. I'm Jennifer Carver. I'm with our Office of Policy Planning in DOT Central Office, and I coordinate our resilience planning efforts at the department. So I wanted to give you an overview today on some of our resilience activities and then our development of our resilience action plan. So we have experienced over the years many hurricanes and lots of extreme weather events. And so we have learned ways to improve our system's resiliency. We did adopt an agency policy for resiliency of state transportation infrastructure back in 2020 and have been working to implement that as we move forward over the last couple of years. Our resiliency policy does include a definition of resiliency, which is the ability to adapt to changing conditions, prepare for, withstand, and recover from disruption. And we're focusing on identifying risks, identifying impacts, assessing those impacts, and identifying strategies to incorporate into our projects and our other work. So basically, this policy directs us to incorporate resiliency into our business at the Department of Transportation. Next slide. So we have a number of actions underway at the department, including incorporating resilience into our practices. We have developed several tools. We're conducting some research and involved in national research, and collaboration is a key part of what we're doing as we move forward with integrating all of these things together. So our practices, we consider that to include planning, policies, our design, and our construction practices. And as you may know, our long range and statewide planning efforts have incorporated resilience goals, objectives, and strategies, including the Florida Transportation Plan, our Strategic Intermodal System Policy Plan, our Freight Mobility and Trade Plan, the Seaports and Waterways Plan, and our Transportation Asset Management Plan. We have undertaken a self-assessment called a Capability Maturity Framework Assessment to look at our practices and identify kind of where we want to get to in the future as far as being resilient. And that feeds into our implementation of our resiliency policy. We do have a number of ways that our design and construction practices are already resilient or inherently resilient, and I'll talk about that more in a moment. As far as our tools, you may be familiar with our sea-level scenario sketch planning tool. That is an interactive mapping tool that helps visualize the effects of current and future flood risk and hurricane, storm surge, and sea level rise on transportation infrastructure in Florida. A lot of the regional planning councils and local communities around the state have used that tool. We are also working on a tool to incorporate that resilience analysis at a more project level orientation. Hello? Okay. I'll keep going. So on our research efforts, we have some research going on related to pavement, including asphalt and concrete pavement and their resilience to flooding. We also have some planning research and are involved in a number of research projects through the Transportation Research Board and the National Cooperative Highway Research Program. Collaboration, as I mentioned earlier, is key to our efforts. We are continuously finding ways to work with our regional and local partners and our other state agencies to address resilience, to make sure that we're coordinating and not recreating the wheel, and collaborating internally within the department as well to share information. Next slide. So some of the items that we consider to be inherently resilient include some of our design practices that we already have in place. Our stormwater and drainage design procedures are pointing to the latest national guidance on sea level rise and inland and riverine flooding. We evaluate and engineer our systems to look at the design event without damage to our facilities. We also require a sea level rise analysis to address the vulnerability of flooding over the design life of the facility. Some of the other designs that are inherently resilient include traffic signals, the pavement markings, roundabouts function well when there's no power. Our high mast lighting is already a resilient design, including the light fixtures being able to be lowered and handle wind loads. And we are incorporating various materials that are resilient. Next. And we're also incorporating nature-based solutions into our projects. Looking at, this is a picture of the Barracuda Bridge replacement project, or an area in up north of you all that is looking at maintaining essential fish habitat and incorporating nature-based solutions. I know that down in District 4, there are also some nature-based solutions projects. So trying to incorporate and enhance the environment as we work through these solutions as well. Next. And just some information about what District 4 is doing. They have repeatedly shown this graphic here that shows the typical progression for transportation projects, from long-range planning all the way through design, construction, and operations and maintenance. These are the phases of the transportation development, project development process. And really, resiliency is not just a linear process. It's always starting, with the long range planning and moving all the way through. We are working with our partners to incorporate resilience at whatever phase we are in the projects. And some of the pictures on this slide highlight some State Road A1A examples to show an evolution of incorporation of resilience into the selection and design of transportation projects. The State Road A1A in Fort Lauderdale example is notable in yielding both a more resilient roadway and a roadway that reflects the community's multimodal vision. The State Road A1A tidal flooding study in Hollywood and projects that follow up on that incorporate a wide range of changes and looking at investments in both short-term actions and long-term actions. Next. So those are some of the activities that we've had going on over the years. And now I wanted to move into a discussion of some of the federal and state funding programs and planning requirements that are in place now. So first, I want to cover the federal programs. So in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, there is a new program called PROTECT, which is promoting resilient operations for transformative, efficient, and cost-saving transportation. So the purpose of that program is to fund resilience enhancements to transportation projects and facilities, and to fund planning and all the way up through implementation. And there is both formula funding for that program and also some discretionary funding that will be given out as discretionary grants nationwide. So Florida is expected to get about $70 million a year in the formula funds. And we are working to allocate the first year or so of those funds right now with existing projects that are in the work program that already have eligible components for PROTECT funding. Those funds will be allocated by the districts, and the districts will, as always, work with the TPOs in their areas to identify the priorities for those projects. The discretionary grants will be coming out in the future, and we don't have specific guidance on that program. But in the PROTECT formula fund, actually for both of the programs, there's an option to include a resilience improvement plan that if it's approved by Federal Highway for the agency, it provides for an increased federal share of work funded under the PROTECT program. So that feeds nicely into what I'm going to talk about next, which is the resilience action plan that the state is requiring the department to create. Next. So over the years, and this is probably not new to most of you, but the state has had an increasing interest and requirements related to resilience and looking at in comprehensive planning, looking at sea level rise and flooding. A couple of years ago, there was a legislation that required any state financed construction in the coastal building zone to do a sea level impact projection study to identify potential modifications to the project. The legislature created the Resilient Florida program that provides grants for planning and vulnerability assessment and project implementation statewide for resilience projects. We have a chief resilience officer. The Florida Flood Hub at the University of South Florida has been created to develop data sets related to flooding and storm surge and sea level rise that various agencies can use. And then in the last legislative session, including establishing officially the chief resilience officer at the governor's office, there was also a requirement that the Department of Transportation develop a resilience action plan. So this feeds right into the work we've already been doing. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that plan. So if you go to the next slide. The goals that have been identified for the Resilience Action Plan include recommending strategies to increase infrastructure resilience, to look at design changes needed for existing and new facilities, and to enhance partnerships for resilience needs. So things that we're already working on. And that plan is due, the first version of the plan is due to the governor and legislature by June 30th, 2023. So we're on a quick time frame to get this initial plan done using existing information and data. And then there's a requirement to update it every 3 years. So we'll include in the plan places where there are data gaps or additional analysis or information that we'd like to do in the future to enhance the plan. Next. Some of the key elements of the Resilience Action Plan include an analysis of historic and current issues, which we were already developing through some of our evaluations of our existing policies, and looking at some nuisance flooding areas, looking at our policies and procedures, creating a vulnerability assessment of the state highway system, which we already had underway statewide for the strategic intermodal system, and then various districts were working on their own activities. Looking at alternatives for existing facilities and creating a database of vulnerable assets. So we had a number of activities already underway and to complete these items, and including incorporating the work that other agencies have been doing, including the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and their South Atlantic Coastal Study, and some other agencies as well, the regional resilience collaboratives. And the results of the action plan will also be incorporated into our transportation asset management plan, which looks at our organization, program, and individual assets and identifies risk and how we need to address that as well. So that's a quick overview of the resilience action plan. And if you go to the next slide, I had a question that we're looking for input. We want input from various agencies. And so I'm interested in how your organization or your communities have changed your practices to better incorporate or address resilience for transportation. So think about that. We definitely want to hear from you. And if you can go to the next slide, I'll just finish out the comments. And we will continue our collaboration with our partners and stakeholders as we develop the plan. We expect to have the draft plan out for public comment in April or May. And then we do have a resilience website that you can look at to get information and updates on the resilience action plan. So with that, I will stop and see if you have any questions. And like I said, I have some folks from District 4 on the phone as well.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any public comments on the item?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Here, Echo. Are there any member comments on this item? None? I don't see any card up. Paula Ryan?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Great. Thanks. Thank you for the presentation. I think especially given what's happened with Hurricane Ivan, it's timely. You asked about what other communities have been doing, and our chairwoman can give a good overview as to what the city of West Palm Beach has been doing in terms of focusing in on resiliency and our seawalls and whatnot. And I guess my only point to all of this is that's been going on for a minimum of 10 years. And these plans that are due to the state in June 2023, you mentioned sound like a quick turnaround. Can you elaborate on that timeline and what you expect to see? I'm just not sure that we're moving at a fast enough rate to try to harden Florida for the future. And if you have any thoughts on that, I'd appreciate it. And if you want to tell them what West Palm Beach has been doing, that'd be great.
Sure, I can start. I can't speak on behalf of the city of West Palm Beach because I'm not a West Palm Beach employee. But I have a lot of knowledge on what West Palm Beach has been working on their resiliency plan for many years. And really addressing like seawater rises and having a stormwater master plan to address the most vulnerable areas in the city as a forefront. There's other policies that is consistent with that plan, and that is really by all means just starting with complete streets and having Vision Zero action items. Safety is resiliency. Sometimes we think about resiliency, we technically our minds tie into disasters and disaster mitigation, but I do think that there's a lot to consider, which is there's the other aspect to resiliency that we don't see. It's actually budget resiliency. And how do we prepare ourselves in, mitigating impacts after the facts, right? After this past hurricane, I know communities all over Florida are still in the cleanup mode, especially down in Fort Myers. So it's, in situations like that, I think it's really important for us to be prepared and have budgets to go in and do cleanups. But West Palm has a pretty robust program, starting with policy changes that's in the communities. Even though we know that Fdot has put a lot of efforts into this project, a lot of those projects are really affected by state routes itself. But if you think about, if you have 300 linear miles of city road, only a very small portion of it are state routes, like less than 10% state and county routes. So the majority of the issues that we see and as residents in this area are personal to us, and you know, especially in you know, in our historic communities, and you know, where most of the finished floor of these homes who are designated as historic structure is actually lower than the crown of the road, and that's where all the flooding issues is happening, and it's affecting residents on a more personal level. So I do think, like, if there are you know, I'll pivot back to FDOT because this is part of their presentation. But I'd like to know if there are like a top 3 strategies that is yields a result, because I think we are right now we're approaching resiliency with a shotgun approach, and maybe we need to take a look at what are the top 3 things that we as citizens in the county could focus on. So I'll pivot back to FDOT.
Thank you. So we are in the process of conducting our vulnerability assessment for the statewide, for the state highway system. We are also in the process of developing those strategies, and we'll be looking at ways to prioritize. So we don't have at this point a top 3 set of strategies or a prioritization. I do know that our districts, especially District 4, has been looking at, you know, how to incorporate resilience into their projects as we move forward. And something you mentioned about the elevation of the road, you know, causing more flooding, you know, we're really looking at what's the best solution for each community and each location. And that really has to be analyzed. There's not a way to kind of do that at a statewide level. So we rely very closely on the districts to work with the communities and figure out the best solutions that will work with the community. So we're not quite at the point of having the top strategies yet. We expect having kind of a range of strategies that we will recommend, and as needed, we will modify our design standards and criteria to allow for those strategies if that's needed. But there's quite a bit of leeway in what we have already got in our design and our manuals. And I want to turn it over to District 4 in case you have anything to add.
Well, I'll just speak to the slides that showed the examples of projects on State Road A1A. Back when Hurricane Sandy went by and washed out that segment of A1A in Fort Lauderdale, which many of you have probably already seen pictures of, and they're on that slide. But in any event, the emergency repair included a resilience element, which was installing 1,400 feet of sheet pile, which would protect the road in the future from coastal erosion. And working with the MPO, Fort Lauderdale, and as a collaborative effort, the permanent repair incorporated the community vision. So you ended up, they did a lane repurposing, reduced lanes, added bike ped facilities, drainage improvements, and the county made improvements to the dune system. So it was a collaborative, but the challenge there, that was a reaction. You had a washout, and that worked out very well. The partners achieved a lot through that effort. So I guess part of the challenge, or one of them going forward, is how do we anticipate so that we're prepared if something does happen to make a betterment, to have kind of these thoughts and alliances, if you will, in place to allow something to happen in a timely way. And then James Poole, our drainage engineer, is on the line. He recently led a State Road A1A tidal flooding study. The catalyst was king tide flooding down in Hollywood on the side streets, which encroached to some extent State Road A1A. So James, I'll pass it off to you in terms of how you engaged multiple partners, city, county, MPO, and came up with short-term actions which are moving forward.
Yeah, well, we partnered with them to gather data about the flooding, where it was occurring, who was affected. We modeled the stormwater in the area and included projections for the future sea levels. And we've started to design projects now to address that king tide flooding that we've observed and that the locals have endured for years. And we'll be building pumps and seawall improvements and some minor overbuild to the roadways to lift the profiles to prevent the flooding in the future. But big picture, the way that I see us responding to these issues is with our looking ahead, our evolution of our standards. We're considering higher tailwaters for our storm sewer systems, and that will help to make us more resilient moving forward.
Thank you. Oh, we have VJ. I'm sorry, I didn't see your card.
I just raised that up. All right, so I'm just talking something secondhand knowledge here. So this might not be applicable again to our state road or even the interstate, but there's a famous, well, I shouldn't say famous, but there's a new development called Babcock Ranch. I don't know if anybody has heard that. Over there, what they have done is they have kept the road profiles lower than the finished floor elevation of the homes. So as per the design, their plan is the road should get flat. And these are the interior road. I'm not talking about your main ones, the exit ones, the inside the community. So on purpose, they are thinking to let the roads get flooded. And these roads are not asphalt roads. These are all brick paved roads. So they want the roads to get flooded, so the houses don't get flooded and water follows wherever that road goes out, and probably so your road becomes like a temporary channel for the storm water to flow out. It was an interesting idea that they have done it again. This community is supposedly the most resilient community in Florida. They call themselves something like that. So it's unique, but yeah, some of the features that they have done to manage how the stormwater is managed and to make it more resilient, that you're not putting more and more paved road versus trying to figure out how to move water more easily. It may be applicable to like a local cities and HOAs.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's high praise, the most resilient community in America. Right, and I think like FDOT made a really good point about changing design standards. Just a couple blocks over here on Clematis Street, it was designed with pervious pavers, right? Or if you go 1 block, 2 blocks the other way on Fern Street, there's bioswales and rain gardens. And these are the design standards that's being incorporated in, general engineering and just having that level of urban green infrastructures design into a lot of our downtown areas. I think that's important. But, for the most of us, we represent municipalities, right? The resiliency that out west may be completely different than the resiliency that we experience east, right? Out in the west, there's like traffic congestion, and that's also resiliency. And on the East Coast, and especially along the coastal communities, we have drainage issues because these are older communities. So I think it's something that cannot be addressed with the state alone. It has to be every city has to put their efforts into changing the way that we address it. Oh, we have another card. Yes, Paula Ryan.
Thank you. So along those lines, this is a question for DOT. When just talked about what the city is doing with respect to bioswales and whatnot. These are not things that are limited to just local roads. I mean, these are design standards that can be incorporated, whether they're in a manual or not. It just seems to me at this stage of the game, we should be a little further along, because one of the biggest issues in Fort Myers was whether or not the call was given in time to get out or evacuate. The issue was there were roads that they couldn't get through. There were bridges that had already been blocked up. So when you look at the design standards that are needed to make it more resilient, are you also looking at ways to divert traffic or ensure that there are roadways accessible to the amount of population that you have living in these low-lying areas?
Excuse me, the department collaborates with the Division of Emergency Management and the regional planning councils and the local emergency managers on evacuation routes and evacuation planning. So I know that is developed, and the regional evacuation studies were updated a couple of years ago. That's not something I'm personally involved in. I don't know if James, if you're involved in that, but I did want to mention that the bioswales and things like that, those are already allowed under our current design standards. Our drainage manual points to nature-based solutions and other different solutions, and we do look at those as we develop our projects. James, do you have any more information about the evacuations and that?
No, but I kind of struggled to understand the linkage between the bioswales and how people weren't able to evacuate. It was a real unfortunate situation if there were bridges locked up and people were stranded. But I'm not sure how a bioswale could have been a solution there.
I'm really, what I'm just trying to make the connection is that local governments are coming up with solutions for problems that they are faced with. And the bioswales, the city of West Palm Beach has been doing it, in terms of any of its new, design projects. But in terms of resiliency, the local governments are the ones that are seeing, the hardest hit, Fort Myers Beach, Sanibel Island. I mean, those are small governments compared to the federal government or the state government, and they're going to be building, for years to come. But if you look at the landmass, I mean, we've got those land masses all over the state of Florida, and they fall in the hands of the local jurisdiction, unless, DOT is involved, and that's, just after it's constructed. But the question is as you're making these decisions about resiliency, you have these existing conditions that are really in the local government purview. And they have a huge impact as to whether or not people are going to be able to survive a storm or not. And so, there was no connectivity other than the fact, and my comment, other than the fact that there's very little connectivity on the local level and the state level when you get to emergency situations. So if you're looking at planning for the future and resiliency, are you taking into consideration these kinds of issues that make it difficult for people to get out?
We are looking at that, and some of the research that we've done on looking at a resilience index and some things looked at connectivity and redundancy and having alternative routes in situations like this is definitely something that is considered in resilience. And as we look to do our vulnerability assessment, we're looking at evacuation routes and other areas to try and prioritize some of those networks. I think that will come into that discussion.
Well, one thing that popped into my mind, and I correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the Florida Keys, the amount of housing they allow is related to their evacuation capacity. And that may also be the case with Sanibel or Captiva, if I have a recollection correct. So it's multiple avenues, as you say, multiple players and maximizing our collaboration. But that may be something that people or more local governments are specifically speaking to. But they do already in their comp plans with evacuation clearance times and things addressed in policy and so forth.
Okay, thank you so much. I see one more card. Richard? Probably have to press it a few more times. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, DOT, for that wonderful presentation and information. Something Ms. Ryan brought up, and I'm glad she did. She spoke about diverting traffic in low-lying areas and people getting out. I represent and live in Western Palm Beach County. With you working for the DOT, I'm sure you're very familiar with the city of West Palm Beach's holding up of State Road 7 extension. We, on a normal basis in Western Palm Beach County, are basically held hostage because this road has not been completed. This road should have been done years ago, and it's been planned for decades. And this is a major for normal everyday use and an evacuation route, plus response times for first responders and fire and police and things like that. How resilient is DOT committed to finishing this project and getting this through?
It's certainly still a top priority. I'm in meetings for that project every week. So we are, we haven't given up yet. So I don't know what else to tell you other than we're still supporting the project in every way we can.
Okay. And there's many thousands of people upon thousands who know this road needs to be done. They understand the hypocrisy of the city and what they're doing and saying is, I don't even have a proper term in a public setting to say what this is about, but we all know what it is. So thank you for continuing your commitment with that.
Yeah, I appreciate your comments. I thank you for your support.
Yes,
Thanks for
absolutely.
saying those things.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any more cards up? Nope. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, DOT. Last is administrative item. Item 4A through 4D are information only. If there are no staff presentations, no, there's no staff presentation. Okay, so there's no public comments on these items?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Perfect. Oh, I'm sorry, James. His your mic is not on, but James was questioning if we want to have a meeting on Pearl Harbor Day.
This is the scheduled agenda or the scheduled meeting date for December that was approved by the TPA governing board. However, if you all as a committee are interested in finding a different day, we can certainly have that discussion.
In either day on either side of December 7, I think would be appropriate.
Yes, give me one moment here.
December 6th is a Tuesday, December 8th is a Thursday.
I will say that on December 8th, we do have our VSAC meeting in the morning. So there is some openings. I would have to look at our full staff availability in order to move the meeting, but I can certainly send out a survey to the full committee if the chair would like to see if either December 6th or December 8th would be better for the committee.
See, that's what you get from a representative for the elderly. And
Yeah, I think that would be great if you send out a survey to determine if which date we would prefer. It's 2 months out, so I don't have any commitment.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right.
I will send that survey.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. So at this time, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.